as we did, some equipment came in, went out, and just tried a whole different scheme of things. And the idea was that this was going to be, my understanding, and I conveyed that to John Matson at the time, was just going to be a temporary thing until we find out what's going to work, and then we can build or do whatever, to accommodate the system that we end up with. There was 3 different systems that were tried before we actually ended up with this. And then it got in here, it was working, and it was fixed. And I told John, I said, we got to do something. And I said, this floor, at that time the only floor was the linoleum floor. And I said, that's not gonna handle the water. Well, he got with a contractor and they decided to put ceramic tile in here and grout it and seal up the floor, put a floor drain in that just daylights outside the building. Well, they just didn't hold up over time. Humidity gets underneath it. That crawl space was sealed up with a hatch, so you couldn't control the environment down below, and or just a bad
design.
So you think concrete or steel, bracing the floor with steel beams instead of wood is the way to go?
I don't, the way to go is gonna be what's gonna work and what's gonna be the least expensive.
What do you think, Jeff?
I don't know, I'm just trying to gather it all in.
If we had to salvage everything, this is a modular system. We had to get this out of here. It could be done in a couple hours. You can see that over the couplings that we have in place. We could move each filter train out. We could clean this thing out in probably a half a day.
Is this an ideal location for this?
Well, it is in relationship to where the wells are at.
Is it?
And we've got 2 well lines coming in here, one from each well outside.
I just wondered if we were better off starting over with a metal building and a concrete floor.
Well, one of the things I was telling Jeff was that Will Lind, who's going to be here pretty quick, they market modular units that are manufactured off-site. And I'll let him explain what they've got, but they do a number of these.
And they're probably more reasonable than building from scratch, or?
I would think so, but
We've hauled them around the country. I've hauled them same type of modulars. They're concrete, all concrete structure.
I'm not sure. There again, you can ask Will that. The brochures that I've seen on them, and they look to me like they're just fabricated out of I'm not sure what kind of material it is, but I don't think it's done.
Well, we've hauled these bathrooms for like state campgrounds and stuff, several states. They are a concrete structure. That'd probably be really expensive if they make a fabricated building that handles humidity. And, I guess probably that's one option. The guy could set it over here, start over fresh, and then just tie your water lines in. Downtime, that's a big consideration, how you go about that.
Yeah, different times of year we got more
Leeway.
time to work with.
And then everything gets added in, then when you go to make the switch, then there's possibly
Hey, Will.
things that are
Hi.
need to be
A young
replaced.
guy.
It's all relative.
Hi, I'm Jean Regal.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Deb
I'm
Davis.
Deb.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And that's Jeff Miller.
Okay.
So
I'm Will.
Lind,
Yes.
L-I-N-D.
Yes.
Nice to meet
And I'm
you.
videoing this just
When do you wanna
because I want to remember everything that he's telling us.
Because it's important.
Okay.
And you live where, Will?
Just down
Monday
the road
morning.
in
So you're
Somerset.
just a few minutes away?
Somerset.
Yeah, I got
Somerset.
2 new batteries.
You probably know where that is.
Yeah.
And,
About
It's just
Little-
outside of Rapid this way,
A little
towards
closer
us.
to Rapid than Sturgis, but about halfway.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, we were just kind of talking about the history of this building, and Rolland was sharing that it was kind of part of a test pilot to see what was ideal working conditions and materials. So we had just gotten to the point where we were wondering about would we be better off scratching this building and doing a modular, and he said this is something that you deal with.
We had, so our business has got
You can give me
a few different things. We've got our water operations division where we just do operations and systems.
Okay.
We've got a SCADA and controls division, so we do control panels, drives. We run most of the SCADA systems for the cities around here. So Spearfish, Sturgis, Hill City, Custer, Rapid City. We just finished Box Elder last night.
Okay.
What is the company?
Yeah, I talked to
Dakota
Jeff.
Pump
This is
Inc.
Dakota Pump Inc.
Right, so there's a Dakota Pumping Control out of Watertown. That's not us. We're
Okay.
Dakota Pumping. So we've got a spot in Watertown, but then our headquarters is in Mitchell, and then we opened a shop in the Black Hills 2012, 14-ish, and now we're full bore. So like, if you're looking for a job, let me know. I got a job posting. So we do service on all that equipment, and then about 50% of our business is building modular systems. Anything from just a skid with piping to a prefabricated building with heaters, controls, treatment equipment, pumps, all that stuff. And then we push that to all 50 states in Canada. So we've got a rep in every state or territory covering that. So we do stuff like this. It just depends on kind of what direction you want to go and what the regulations are. Like in South Dakota, if you wanted to scrap this entire thing, you're probably going to need a state approval, and you're going to need an engineering firm to run you through the regulatory side. But as far as
You mean the system, scrap the system, or
If-
scrap the building?
if you scrap this, so there's a fine line between rehab and new build. So if you were to scrap this building and build a new one and keep some of the equipment, I don't know which side of the environmental regulation that falls on. I think you guys have got a preliminary design review going with AE2S. They can tell you at what point you can work exclusively with us, or at what point you would need their help to run through that system to get funding or engineering approval from the state, or just basic approval from the state. So let's say if you wanted to replace that mixer in that chemical treatment plant, or that chemical deal, and you wanted to put something in, we can do that, no problem. That's in here, it's no problem. If you want to lift this building up, tear all this piping out, reconnect at your well, and put a new building 3 feet that way, your engineering firm is probably going to need to work you through the state process for an approval on that, because they probably won't let that just,
Go do it.
yeah, you can't just go do that per se. Now, if they come back and they say, yeah, you can go do that, absolutely, we can, building, piping, skids, equipment, we can do the whole deal, but you've got to get past that first hurdle of what involvement do we need from, or what approval do we need from the
But
state?
if we would disassemble all of this for a couple hours, put in a new floor, and then put it back, you don't think we have to go through anybody?
I don't know.
You don't know.
In that case, I would think you're okay. We've done things like that before. Personally,
We would
I
need to
think
talk
you're.
to the engineering company.
Personally, I think you'd be okay because you're inside the same structure. You're doing a re-pipe or a true rehab. If you wanted to tear all this out, put in a new floor, I think you're safe. It gets a little grayer when you go to, we're gonna put a new building up,
I see.
and we have a
Relocate.
new footprint. But
Changing pipe schemes and stuff like that.
yeah, it's the way I've kind of told people that we work with is the minute you take the connection from your well and you go to a new facility, that's generally where the crossover is. If you want us to optimize and repipe some stuff in this building, you're generally safe. But I'd run that by your engineering firm, but I'd be surprised if they said, like, if you wanted to rearrange all this inside of here and optimize it, I'd be surprised if they say that you need state approval, because you're just taking the same equipment and relaying it out. You're not changing your system. If you
So,
pull,
2 questions roughly on cost. If you did a whole new structure, roughly what would be that cost? And, you know, if we did a flooring there, I don't know if you have any thought on that, what would be that cost?
floor in here is hard to say because we won't redo the floor.
Yeah.
You'll have to bring someone in. New structure for something like this, are you gonna use the old equipment in the new structure? Maybe. You can probably use the stainless equipment. That tank looks pretty old. Your mixing equipment is probably fine. Your chem injection is fine. I don't know if you're gonna meet NEC clearance requirements with that, so if you went new building, it might get a little bit bigger, or it may get a little smaller if we lay the piping out the right way, but I would say looking at this, do we have a booster in here? A booster pump?
Basically, it's the well pump.
So the well pump feeds
Well
up
pump feeds the system and the tank.
to the tank?
So, Will, do you think that part of the study that we, as you said, we're involved with right
Yep.
now, will they give us a timeline that this needs to be replaced in 2 years, this needs to be replaced in 6 months? We recommend a whole new building or anything like that? Is that part of what they give us?
I doubt it'll get that detailed.
Really? So we would have to ask for it?
Or I would just call them and say, hey, are we gonna get some life cycle analysis of our
Life
current
cycle analysis.
and replacement recommendations for
Okay.
our current equipment. They're probably, based on what we've talked about, they're probably going to say that you guys are at the end of the life cycle of the equipment, because
Joy.
I'm guessing you're past the 5 to 10 year mark with a lot of this stuff. But the other thing you can always do is we could always, we could give Armsco a call and say, what do you have for an average expectant life cycle of your filters? They're stainless. They should last a while. The big things that I see in here that you're gonna look at are, you got PVC pipe, you've got an older tank. You've got a little bit of older copper pipe. It's not terribly complicated in terms of.
And nothing screams, oh my gosh, this is gonna go kaput.
Your building is the problem.
The building is the problem. So don't talk about any equipment, just talk about one of these prefab buildings. Give me a ballpark, what they cost.
I've seen stuff as cheap as 60,000.
60,000,
Yeah.
that's your cheap.
That's the cheap
You're
end.
talking about a building and new
Yeah.
equipment?
Yeah, I mean, you
No,
gotta.
just the building.
It's tough too, because if you just provide buildings, you come up and then you gotta swap all the equipment out of the old building into the new. So my guess tells me, just off the top of my head looking at it, you guys are in, by the time it's all said and done, you're gonna spend $100,000 out
Yeah,
there.
that's what I figured.
I mean, and you can expand that, and is the development all built out?
One lot
Not
left, I
quite.
think.
One lot left?
One or two left.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's a
so
couple.
you don't necessarily really have to expand everything, but with the equipment we've got in here, you're gonna have a little swap over time. I just don't see anything less than $100K by the time you're all said and done, because you're gonna have to electrical it, you're gonna have to plumb it, you're gonna have to pull everything out, put everything in.
Two questions. Downtime in a process like that?
You know, you gotta look at your storage and the time of year. Summertime, not the time to do it because water use out here will run 10,000
sure.
gallons a day. This time of year, maybe 2,500 gallons a day, so, yeah.
I mean, if you had all new equipment in a building, all you had to do is tie the water line in. You're talking about a half a day's worth of downtime, roughly.
It'll probably be a full day by the time you're done because you gotta do startup.
Everybody
on all
would be
the
up without
equipment.
water for a full day.
On if you're, how big's your tank?
We got 220,000.
So no one's gonna be without water.
Oh,
the key,
okay.
the key on that deal is you got to get it down before your tank. So you got a
Yeah.
battery, right? Your tank is your
Yep.
battery,
Yep.
and it's draining while we're out here trying to get that stuff hooked
You
up.
got
So-
about 7 days of storage right now.
7
You're gonna
days.
be at risk a little bit with fire protection, because you're not gonna be able to fill your tanks, and, you know, fire protection is marginal in these developments anyway, because even 40,000 gallons of storage up there is not a lot when you start putting out a fire.
Okay, next question is, if this community did expand, does the well have the capability, does the equipment have the capability for expansion?
At the present potential build out, yes. If you're talking about acquiring more land and developing more lots, you'd have to have, engineer look at that. And the state is only, you know, you've got a water right on this well, both of them. And they dictate, you know, what you're allowed to pull on for
Yeah,
You
so-
don't know where we're at according to,
that. I know there's a lot, I can't remember what the numbers are, but, I never got involved with those reports that went to the state other than providing data.
You're gonna have a max gallons per year or a max gallons per minute that well's allowed to pull, and when you
I
hit
looked
there,
at that water rights thing that you're talking about, and we were nowhere near
Yeah.
what we could
okay.
pull, yeah.
I mean, the big thing on that at a certain point becomes you're gonna run into a fire protection issue. Do you have enough water for fire protection? Can you fill the tanks, or do your tanks have the capacity to be filled by your filtration system at a rate
Yeah.
to help those new customers? So there's a few variables out there just besides your well, because once it leaves the well, you gotta be able to treat it and deliver it at the right rate too. But if they're not near, I haven't seen what your hours your wells run during the summer, but that'd help. That'd be a good ballpark. If that well's running 20 hours a day right now, trying to keep up.
So your experience is, there is some grants to help communities out there?
Yeah, the state's got money. DANR, they've got grant money available for different programs. They've got low interest loans. So there's resources out there that you can.
Have they ever came here and studied our setup and any sanitary type issues come up or anything like that?
They do an on-site inspection. I think it's every 2 to 3 years, and we just did one here not too long ago. So
And
there's a
what-
regional office in Rapid, and they send out engineers into the field.
And the report was okay, the way it is?
Well, yeah, as far as, being in compliance with water quality, those issues, yes. This is beyond their scope, they don't get into much, unless there's issues with public health, or system integrity, the state would get involved.
So you've got two things going on with those questions. One is your engineering firm that you guys have hired is setting you up to go down the path of getting funding. By doing that study and then submitting to the state, they're getting you on the path to. My guess would be, and I've got nothing to confirm this, but my guess is they came in and the report that they recommended, they looked at this and went, we can design them a new system. Homeowners associations generally don't have terribly deep pockets, and they're usually undercharging for their water. We have to get them on the path to do that, and the first step is a preliminary design review that says, hey, they need to do this, it's gonna cost about X, now you're qualified to go to the state and get a state loan, a state grant, and do some design work. So you're, whether you know it or not, you're already being pushed down that path.
I think that's the route we wanna go down.
Yeah.
And the other side of it is, if we're operational now, we can set this out for 1, 2, 3 years when the actual construction takes place, and we're all set up, we got grants in line to pay for it, blah, blah, blah. You know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out this floor is pretty well junk, we got a humidity problem, there's questionable equipment in here that is gonna need to be replaced in the near future. I mean, the tank looks pretty tough, but it doesn't mean anything. It can look tough, but still be good.
Yeah.
And that's minimal expense.
Yeah.
So we really have some big questions to answer about where we're headed as a subdivision, you know, before we really decide, you know, what route we're gonna take. So I guess for today, are we at risk of this all falling through the floor?
No.
No? Well, what can we do to bolster it to make sure that,
I've crawled under there. As far as I'm concerned, my opinion is, I mean, this floor is not gonna fall in the next 3 years.
3 years?
I'm
Okay.
guessing. I mean,
It's kind of
it's not
what we
even
had
gonna fall
talked,
in.
you know, but
Yeah.
I hadn't seen it myself, and I'm still haven't gone down there. But,
Say the loose link right now is that tank. It's,
This one?
Yeah. When it was new, the pressure specs on it were marginal. And it should be stainless steel.
what are we talking for cost there, ballpark?
I priced them out there.
Stainless. I sold one that recently that wasn't stainless, but it was about that same size, and it was about $6,000. I'd have to look at what a stainless one is. If you're gonna go down the road of looking at new, it may not be worth the dollars to go stainless right out of the gate, because I mean the big thing you need is a tank that's drinking water approved. But I was just about to say, while you were talking about, I don't think you have anything that's like hair on fire at the moment. I think what I would do is, everything in here right now is replaceable. Your problem is your building. And when you take that building, that's when you're gonna have to get that approval and go through the state process. Between Rolland and myself, just about every single thing in here, we can work on, replace, put a Band-Aid on until you get your report from your engineer. And I think the goal would be, don't spend any money right now that you wish you would have saved for the new project.
That's
Just
a good point.
let's look. Now, if that changes and you have a giant problem and the floor caves in, I think that's almost kind of an unforeseen thing at this point anyways. And then you're gonna need an engineering firm no matter what anyways. So I think you're already going down the right path.
Okay.
Number one, I say the floor, it's gonna last a duration as long as we're working on this plan. I mean, obviously it needs to be replaced. Number two, that tank looks rough on the outside, but it does have a bladder inside, if I'm right. I mean, so it does look rough on the outside, caused by humidity. So it's gonna last, but it's something that I would say is, without any experience in any of this, it's probably something that's gonna.
got a pre-charge checkpoint on it, Roland?
No. I don't think there's a bladder in there. I think that's.
There isn't?
No, I think it's just and I don't know that for sure. But the answer will.
So that edge of that
Can't
steel
charge it.
over there on that hatch, how thick is it?
The tank thickness, I think, is 1/4 inch. But,
And that's not water, that's just air.
no, it's water.
It is water.
Yeah. What that does is just provides detention time for the chemical feed to mix with that water prior to going to your
Oh,
filter.
so it's not a pressure tank?
It's under pressure
Okay.
from water
Oh,
system.
okay, I
So
got it.
but
what
it's-
we could do is we could shut it off here. Is there there's an isolation valve right there.
Yeah, they're all over the place.
And there's a tap right here. We could put a pressure gauge on there and we shut that down. We isolate flow. We let a little bit of the downstream pressure off of it as it goes, and then we open this. And if it pushes water, we know it'll have a bladder in it. And if it doesn't, it either bladder a shot or it never had one to start
Yeah.
with.
I've got the specs on that tank in my files.
I was gonna say, is there
there
some
you go.
files with
Yes.
all of the warranties?
Yes.
Not that they're any good.
Now, there's no warranty on it,
Yeah,
but, yeah, I do have, the original documentation on that tank. Yeah, that's for you there anyway. Well, I was gonna take pictures of that controller, and there's, the only data on the side of that thing, I think, is in relation to the well pump.
Okay, well, I'm here, so I'll get some.
But
info.
anyway, the manual for that is in that. Send that with you before you go. If you look at the, on the right side of that, there's a, I think that's just, well pump data.
Yeah, that's the motor on it.
And I opened up the inside and there's nothing,
What's your heat source in here?
right now it's just that little electric.
Oh,
heater.
let's
Yeah,
get a
that needs
heater.
replaced.
Immediately.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, this place would be, it would be kinda hard to freeze it with this open space. We get enough ground heat just coming up from the bottom that kinda keeps us from freezing. Never had any freezing issues here.
But, I mean, if you, at least when you come in to change filters and stuff, you don't have to be in the cold, right?
No, but, I try and keep the temperature down as much as possible to eliminate, the condensation.
Okay.
Start heating this thing up, pumping cold water through, and pretty soon the tank's starting bleeding. And,
Yeah.
so I keep it cool intentionally,
Okay.
but I don't let it freeze.
Do you have a thermostat in here or something to
Not
tell,
a- well,
well,
I've got-
tells you what the temp is?
Yeah.
Okay. So you try to keep it right about, what is that, like
Well,
50?
I think over 40 in here this morning. That's about 48 degrees.
Okay. Because it was 20 this morning at my house.
19.
So that's pretty, I mean, that's a good temp.
It's workable temp, I don't want to keep it, just don't want to waste heat. I don't know what the electric bill is for this place.
Is it on a separate meter?
I imagine it is.
Maybe Tammy's
think they
paying for
call
it.
that-
I'm sure she is.
that
I never
pad that-
thought about it.
Somewhere in that manual I seen it referred to as the LCP, something control panel. I think that's the only thing it needs, but I'm not sure. They make it sound like it's modular, just unplug it, plug it back in.
What's that about?
That control panel for that.
Oh yeah, I mean, all you have to do to get a new screen for that is reach up here with a screwdriver and pull that out and just put a new one in. It won't be.
They still make parts for it?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Is what model it is.
I don't think there's anything up there. if I remember right. You wanna open that up?
Yeah,
I'm
probably going to.
Get some tools. I've got my tool back
Well, I think we pretty much got it figured out. Eventually, you're gonna have to replace it, and
Well, the thing is I think as a subdivision, we have to decide where we're headed. If they're serious about annexation, then why would we do this?
that's true too. Never gave
Yeah.
that a thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need to sit down and do pros and cons and send it out.
And it's probably gonna have to go to a vote, everybody weigh in.
Yes.
I think that's, next,
That'd be the cheapest.
Oh, okay.
Yes and no.
Yes and no, yeah. We went and met with them, had a really good meeting.
And So
In the long
cheapest for
run,
the HOA, but taxes wise, everybody's taxes go up.
but they take over the roads, and they, so that's all their issue, and the water system. If there's a leak, which can get super costly, that would be on them.
We can buy water from them.
Directly and not
And then they would
annex.
just put a meter right at the entrance, but then we'd have to be dealing with all this.
And then they would police it.
Well, no, because they would make sure it was good water quality. We would just have to be
Yeah.
billing people.
Right.
So we wouldn't have to deal with all this.
Yeah, that
Right.
makes sense.
Exactly.
This would all go away.
Right.
Yeah, that's definitely, we need to explore that option.
Right.
And when and if that happens.
Well, I think with the and I'm just throwing it out there, but with the new infrastructure thing that got passed, there's monies available that they might not have had before to tap into to bring water down Boulder Canyon.
That's true.
Yeah, but we're doing what we should, gathering all the information, and then we'll have an educated.
Keep the engineering plan going,
Right.
and then maybe we eventually have a cost of what it takes to replace this, and
Weigh all the factors.
and then maybe by then they'll have decided whether they're gonna bring water out and go from there. I mean, they already have one community over here, they're bringing water out too.
Right.
The report I seen, they're taking it all the way up to, I don't know, what's the next road, up the road on the right? The weird
And out
name.
there by the
2-bit?
lodge too.
Not 2-bit.
That's already there.
Right.
They're,
We asked them, well, we're kind of right here in the way, and they said they would never try to force annexation on us. That it was totally, it had to be something we wanted.
yeah. Well, that's good.
So,
Two-bit road, that's where they're talking about
Two-bit.
bring water out
That's
too.
Find what you wanted?
yes, we'll be able to find out if they've still got those screens or not really easy because the part number is right on the back of it. So if you're working with your engineer, the only sales pitch you're gonna get from me is that if you want to work with us on helping design and try and control cost, you have to tell your engineer that they want to work with us. Otherwise, what they're gonna do is they're gonna write a general specification. It's gonna go out, and whoever wants to bid on it can. What we do to try and help our business and help end users is we will work with the engineer to help write that specification to control size, equipment, specific things you want in there. We can put things about you got to have a service center within X amount of miles, you're going to use specific equipment, things like that. If you don't tell them that, they're just going to assume that you want to go out. Now, the trust factor there is that if you do that, you narrow the amount of people that can bid on your equipment. If you trust us that we're going to treat you right, that's not a big deal. But when you narrow that pool, obviously, it makes it easier for us to come in and go,